Well, what is co-housing about? Well, I imagine you could probably imagine most of this sort of thing. It's about living in a kind of more collaborative way. Nearly every group that I've been involved with has been interested in how do we live more sustainably, things that you can do together as a group much more effectively than you can living on your own. A lot of sharing, sharing space, time, skills, and stuff. The scheme down in Stroud, Spring Hill scheme that some of you may know, they're very proud that they only have one lawnmower, whereas they used to have 30. So I think there's some kind of practical things about how you share kit. Important that people realise that everybody has their own self-contained home. This is not about sharing your living accommodation with other people. And then it's this kind of balance of combating loneliness, making sure that people's privacy is respected, but the group as a whole having its own kind of autonomy to decide how it works. And in a sense, that is a really important element of it, is that you wouldn't sign up for co-housing if you weren't willing to kind of put the effort in to make the thing work. An awful lot is said about living in community, and people love talking about happy communities, neighbourliness, and the rest of it. But as every enabler to a community housing scheme will say, community doesn't happen on its own. It takes a lot of work. And as we're finding now, even running a street WhatsApp group takes a little bit of administration and work from somebody. Is there a typical co-housing community? Not really, would be my thing. I mean, there are some things that are common. Obviously, it's set up and it's run by the first residents. People come together specifically to do it. It doesn't happen by accident. But size, it's very varied. Copper Lane scheme you saw earlier was 8. The Marmalade Lane is 44. That's the biggest one in the UK. In mainland Europe, some of them are bigger. They go up to about 80. Everybody is involved in making decisions. So you don't have a management committee that makes all the decisions and then accounts to everybody. And then you get fed up with the management committee. Everybody participates in everything. Making, as I said earlier, making that design decision at the beginning is a way of building your community. Smaller homes, sometimes, if you're going to have a lot of shared space, common house, for instance, where people meet and have some groups lend that space from their own homes, have a slightly smaller home, and that helps pay for common facilities. They'll often have guest rooms. So again, if you have people coming to stay, you don't necessarily have to have your own spare bedroom. You can have your visitors use the guest room. Place stewardship, a bit of a mouthful, but it is about the commitment to going on making your place work. And the little kind of rather folksy diagram on the left there kind of gives you an idea of the sort of thing. Often there's a kind of an open space, there's a common house, it could be a children's play area, there may be parking for a carpool, you may even go in for community energy. So there are quite a lot of things that you have to commit to kind of make things work. And they're not about grand designs. That's kind of what we say, but the fact that almost every new co-housing scheme seems to scoop a lot of architectural work awards makes that sound a rather hollow boast. But people don't go into these schemes thinking that they're going to design award-winning projects. It's often the quality and the character that comes out of them at the end is so unique and special that they do end up winning these awards. And yet, if you look at Marmalade Lane, it's just a street, but it's a street that's full of life and activity, and that's what people who judge these awards are really attracted by. Just a few things here. There's some pictures from Sweden on the top. This is kind of city centre apartment. But again, there's quite a lot of emphasis on shared open space. There's a big terrace there, presumably outside on the left, outside the common house. Nice big balconies. The two on the bottom left are in Germany, in the center of Berlin, a co-housing project that's also part of a bigger cooperative scheme right on the River Spray going through the city center. And then the two on the left are in Oakland, California. And this was done by a commercial developer. He didn't actually recruit a group to begin with. He just built the scheme and then sold it to people as a co-housing project. And people came, and it seems to be working very well. The things down the right-hand side, I won't go into in too much detail, but you can have all kinds of co-housing in all kinds of different ways for different groups of people. It can be ownership, could be rent, can be for older people, for younger people, or a mix. You can do it yourself as a group. One or two schemes have done everything themselves, haven't had a developer or housing association, or you can do it in partnership with the developer. We've devised at the network some co-housing principles. And again, these are a bit like the things I was talking about earlier. These five very simple things about healthy and sustainable living, about making a community of place and people, residents being in control, a balance between shared and private things, and what we like to call generous citizenship. Quite a few co-housing projects are seen by other people as being a bit inward-looking and not playing a part in the community. As a movement, we try very hard to give the other impression that the resources that we have are things that we're very happy to share with other people. And you could say this feels like common sense. Does it have to be kind of special things for co-housing? These are things that we would like, anybody would like about their housing. So you could say it's very normal, but not everybody thinks that. So when the Spring Hill scheme in Stroud went to planning committee, in fact, their ward councillor thought this was weirdy. They're not normal. They couldn't get used to the idea of people wanting to live in this collaborative way. They had to be advised that that wasn't a good reason for turning down the planning permission. So there we are. As a movement, we campaign. We have a manifesto which we crowdsourced at a conference some years ago. It stood us in very good stead. And I think the things that you see here are really trying to give the impression that this is a movement of people. You know, if you want to be involved in a co-housing scheme, we hope your group will join the network. But we also have kind of values, and that we're very concerned about affordability, particularly for younger people. We want the schemes to be for rental as well as ownership, but it's been difficult to do that up until quite recently. So it has relied quite a lot on people with their own housing equity to start with. We want to work with other community housing groups, cooperatives and community land trusts, and we want it to have the impression that it's open to anyone, and not just relatively well-off middle-class people with existing equity. And we want to reach out to people who've never yet heard of co-housing, but would actually quite like what we have to offer. So there we are.